in it. Then you install the dev dependency. You just wrote the system is not. You then imported the Express. Then defined the app that we can use in case you want to do app.get, all those CRUD, all those HTTP methods. You did app.get, then you define the port. You say we can use any number, but you that's where we ended. You've not how will I put it? You've not run the server.
Okay. Okay. So let's start from there, because it is important that we now, after setting out our server, it's important we start the server to confirm whether it is running or not. The reason behind that is that you to make sure your server is running. So whatever thing you added inside your server and the app crash, then from there you know that this is the step you take that your app crash. So you know what to do. You know where you can fix out the error message, and where you can debug it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So now I will now run the server. Remember, we are using, if you have any question, you can tap in the question tab. That is where I'm focusing. So that is where the tab I will be using. All right. So let me now run the server. You remember that I told you we are going to use NodeMo for auto restart of the server. So I'm going to use it now to start the server and see whether it's running or not. Yes, our server is running. So now we can proceed. Have you practiced it on your own? Have you do everything I do that day so that you make sure it's running well?
I did not practice, but I'm actually working on back end now. So I'm doing lots of things with backend. The only thing that is different from what you did that I learned was that adding stats, that stats for nodes in your package.json. That's the only thing I
You
don't used
repeat
to do
yourself.
before.
I can't hear you.
The
I can't
network
hear
is
you clearly.
bad.
Can you repeat yourself?
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Sorry, I'm not getting you hearing me. I'm not getting you at all. Hello? All right. So I hope there is no challenge. If there is, let me know. But if there is not, then we proceed from there. I can hear you. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm recording. I started the recording, but let me still confirm it. But I'm recording. Yes, it's recorded. All right. So after setting your server now, you can start building your application. Before we do anything, we have to look on the static, creating a basic APIs. I'm using the static data to confirm it. But basically in the backend development, what you initially do is we do the CRUD operation. That is what we do most in the backend, meaning we create, we read, we update, and we delete. This is what we'll be doing in the backend. Yes, this is what we'll be doing in the backend. This C now stands for create, and then the R stands for read, the U stands for update, and the D stands for delete. So this is what basically you'll be doing in the backend. You create, you read, and you update, and you delete. So, but for now, we'll be using static data examples to try out one or two of these things to see how it can go before we start looking into creating of a database and all of that. If time permits, we can try setting up our database account today so that in the next class, we now try to do something better that is meaningful for us. First of all, I will have my route here, my API here. I will name it app. I will call it app.get. App.get, and then I will give it the endpoint, and then as well I will give it a callback. I will accept the request and the response objects. Request and the response objects here. So after that, I will now bring in a callback function, which is an arrow function, and then this is what we call API in the backend using Node.js. I explained it in the last class. The whole of this, we call it API. But this app is our express function, our express that we're building our application on. And then the get is one of the API methods, which is HTTP method, one of them, which allow us to get. So when we are talking of read, this is the R here, the read in this our CRUD operation. We now use it, the get. What does this get mean? The get is getting what we store in our database. As we proceed, we'll be doing much examples to see how it works. When you say get here, get method, you are trying to read something from the database. Okay, for example, you have created a user or created a product and store in your data or the user information. You are going to use the get method. After that, this is what we call endpoint. And in this endpoint, you are going to pass in something here after this /. For example, let's say test server. Let us test the server and see whether it's working. The name of our endpoint. This is what we are sending to the front-end guy after we build our application. This is what our is going to use for this particular API. This is what the person will call in the browser, this endpoint, that will now trigger to this API. So this particular place I highlighted here, we call it endpoints. Coming to here in the request and response object, where we are accepting it, this endpoint, when it is called, we accept this request now is used when this API is called. But in the response parts, we are going to use it in the backend here. Okay, we have the and then process it according to the request, and then we're supposed to send a response back to the user. And as a backend developer, you must send a response to the front end, whether it's bad or good. Because if you did send any response, your app will crash. So in that case, we validate some information. If the user is trying to do something on the server, which is not allowed, you have to send message to this user that, oh, what you are trying to do, this is not what we want. This is what we request from you. For example, you create a form in your front-end part, and you ask the user to fill after connecting your backend, integrating your backend and the front-end together, and the user did not fill the field, and then is trying to submit the form. That is a bad request. You now send the user back a response. Oh, you have to fill in all the able to submit this form. So in that case, we now send a response back, which we say res dot send and then inside there we pass in a string which will say please fill all the input. Don't mind the what I'm tapping. It's just for example. So by doing this, the user will get a message back. If we call this API now, you will see that the message we are getting is this. Let me open my Postman. Do you have a Postman installed on your PC? Are you there? You can speak. I saw your message and it's good to go. So if you are with your PC and you are trying to do it, you can follow me and then we'll try it together. But if you don't have, whenever you are chance, then you try it on your own. So I'm going back here to copy this endpoint. Copy this endpoint here and go back to my Postman. In this case, we have so many methods here. They get, they post, they pull, they patch, they delete, and other ones. So what we need is the get request. So we'll leave it like that. And we'll type local host colon. Our server is running on port 5000, and then we put in our endpoints. This is how we use it. So when I send this 404, yes, this is a get request. Server running on port 5000. Okay. Why it cannot get? Let me copy this and try to copy this from this side. Maybe I misspell. Let me try this and see. So I will copy the endpoint and try it again in my Postman. Why cannot get? And it's not, my server is still running. No response. All right, I'm waiting. All right, I hope you can see my screen. You can speak. User. Pardon? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. I
Okay.
ended where you wanted to use Postman or something to get the
Well, I wanted to do
what's it
what?
called? Use Postman to do test server.
Yes, I changed the endpoint. I want to try it again. It's not working. I don't know why. Okay. See what I did. I did not save it. That's why. You can see that as I'm saving, my payment to server. Okay, cannot get. I have two double slash. Yes, you can see that I have. Please fill all the in. Right? So this is how we get something from the database using this API. I call in the endpoint here. From here, this is the endpoint, and I call it here. While using a local host, the port is 5000. This local host means that this is the URL that our server is running on. But this local host means that it's in our local machine. It's in our machine. It's not hosted yet. So this URL now is now pointing back to our system, back to my system. That's why you see that I'm using localhost here. Then the port is the 5000, which is here. Is what I define it here. That is there. So that is how we run this to get to send a request to our backend. So this is how are you good at this point so that we can proceed?
Yes. Did you still use the postman,
Yes, ma.
or you
I'm
are
using
just checking it on the
the
terminal?
postman. Okay, you
I
are not
cannot
seeing
see
my
the
postman, right?
yes, I'm just
Oh,
seeing the
oh, 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 sorry. Let me share the whole screen so that you can share it. I will stop sharing and then share it again. I thought you were seeing it. Sorry for
but
that.
the recording is not on.
Pardon?
If you stop sharing with the recording code,
No, the recording will not cut. I'm trying to stop sharing and share my screen again. I stop sharing. I'm going to share the whole screen now so that you'll be seeing what I'm doing in my postman. I thought you had seen it since. Sorry for that. Can you see my screen now?
yes,
Okay. What of the postman?
yes, I can see it. Get
Okay, yes. So I was saying that this is how we call this URL. But it's not because I am using the same system and my VS Code is in the same system together with the postman that it make it to get this output here. No, that is not the reason. The reason is this URL now, localhost, I have http :/localhost. This localhost here now, this is my local machine. It's because this what I'm doing, my server is still running on my machine. It's not hosted yet. So this local is pointing back to my machine. And what is the port that is falling on my machine, pointing back? This is the point 5000 here, which is in my machine. If you see in my server here, sorry. if you see in my server here, I define my port 5000. So the local host is my machine, and the port my application is listening on is 5000. That is why it's connected. If I am to send this to a front-end guy, I'm going to send this API to the front-end guy. When we proceed, you will see that it's not this particular, I'm going to have something we call routes. So I will do everything there and then send the endpoint to the front end. So that is where they will integrate this particular API in their front end. So whenever they call these endpoints in the browser, like I did here, this Postman is mainly like we can't go now and start building front end to test our server. So this Postman or Thunder Client or Swagger, you are using it as your front end. Whatever you are doing here, that is when they build the front end. That is how everything will work. So from this particular place here, from this particular place, this / come this side is our endpoints in our application here. This one that I copy and paste in there. So it's pointing, the URL is pointing in this endpoint. That is the reason why I get the output. And you can see my response there is, please fill all the input. And it's the same thing you see in my Postman here. It's the same thing you see here. So this is how we define API. And this is how we read something from the database. Like this. So if we move forward, you will see that we'll be using this. As a backend developer, you create, you read, you update, and you delete. So that is what we'll be doing. Creating APIs is what we'll be doing. That is our primary assignment in the backend. So now, we can still add another example. Should I comment this one or should I add another one? Let me add another one. So that I can do another example in here. So now I'm going to change this endpoint here. I am going to change this endpoint here. I'm putting another endpoint so that we have a different route in here and test it again to see whether we can get something. So now I will change it to user. What are we trying to get? We are trying to get a user. So in the response back, I will now send something list or user. And if I save this file now, copy my endpoint, copy my endpoint, take it to Postman. In this case, I will remove that one and then paste in the new endpoint, which I'm going to send back again. And it gets my output, My response is here, list all user. So that is the second one. But now, let's try adding something in here. We will now create a variable here, inside here, by saying const equal to, we will give it, we will give it an array. So giving it an array, we will pass in an object inside. So in this object, we are going to pass in first name, which is our key. This point now, we are using a JavaScript object. That is why you see I have my key in here, and I'm going to give it a value, which in this point, it is a string. So I will give it whatever name I want in there. Then outside there, I will put in a comma. Sorry, I did not give my array a name, which I can say users, because I want to get users. The same thing, I will still have another object in here, which I will give it a last name. As well, give it a value, which is anything I want. At this point, my response will be different in this case. I will now pass in the variable I create up here, which is user. I will pass the users inside my response, and I will save this file. Going back to my Postman, I will now, going back to my Postman, I will still use this design endpoint, but I added something inside there. I have user first name and last name. So I want to get it. I will still send. This is a request, and it bring out an array which is in JSON format, and is giving me 200 OK here. We are going to that, which is giving me 200 OK here, and in this place is giving me JSON format. I'm going to explain all that. So this is how we get something from the database. If when we proceed, you will see that we'll be querying database to get user, get product, get whatever you save inside your database. But this is the basic. What I'm trying to let you know is that to understand how the APIs work, how we define the API, how we call the endpoints, and which method of HTTP are we using to communicate with our server, which is GET, that we query the database using what you put in the function here, and then return back the response. If you see this GET method, it has two parameters. One is the endpoint. The second one is the arrow function, which is the callback function. Whatever logic you are doing, it will fall inside this arrow function. And whatever falls inside this arrow function, at the end of everything, you are going to send back a response to the front end, which you send in back here. We are using one of the parameters we pass here, which is the response. If you like, you can write it in full or in short form. Anything, if we put in here and use it here, it will still work. But this is the best approach we use. So, as a backend developer, you will see that our postman give us 200 OK and then a JSON format. What does that mean? It means that as a backend developer, you will be sending and receiving data in JSON format. And we have what we call status code. Status code, we have many of them, which is giving us different meaning. And as we are sending something here, we are not telling the front-end guy whether it's okay or it's not, whether it's bad request or it's a good request. The front-end guy focuses on your status code. When he sees the status code, he knows what that status code means. So he will know that yes, it's okay or it's a bad request or this and that, whatever as the case may be. Are we on the same page? Please, if you are still following, drop a thumbs up so that we can continue. I know that we are together. Are you there? Okay. I hope you are good. All right, let's proceed. So at this point, the best approach to send a response, we use JSON format. We use JSON format. This is what we use. Use JSON format. Let's start practicing it now so that it will master us. Instead of sending this, using this set, we now use a JSON format here. That's good. And it will go. If I save this and go back to my postman and still send, I still get the same thing. It's fine. Now, let's put in the status code. How do we put it? When you use the response, the first thing you use is the status code. And then we pass in. We pass in is a built-in method. So it and then pass the status code. This is how we use the status code and the JSON format. You send a response, which is the parameter we pass in here. We are using it here to send a response back to the request we have. After our logic, check, validate, and come up with the result, we now use the result to send back to the user. In a situation where the user is not responding to what we need, we now validate up here in the logic function here. This arrow function here, we validate and send a feedback to the user. Don't worry, you will see it in our next classes. So now, sending back. See inside there, I'm sending what I have here as a user. I save something here. Instead of this coming from my database or whatever, I'm using a static data here to save my user information, which is an array. I have an array of objects, which is the first name and the last name, and I pass in the users inside here. I pass in the user inside here. That is the reason why you see in my Postman, I'm having all this information. If I remove that user, you will not see all this information again, because this is what I return as a response in that API. So as we progress, we'll be using it. Sometimes we pass in an object here. We pass in an object message inside here. But don't be worried about that. As we move, you'll be seeing them one after the other. All right, let me check.
Please, I have a question.
Wait now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Before you send response status on our Postman, just the response.send or response.json return the array, the JavaScript array of objects. But
Yes.
now, and still, we still had that status okay at that upside. Now that you added this response.status, what's now the difference?
The difference is the Postman is built in using JSON format. You see this drop down here? Do you see it? Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Yes. You see that my output tick the JSON format. Do you see it here?
Yeah.
Yes. So this is selected as a JSON. If I change to any of this, you will be seeing it, but that is not what I want. And this code now here, the Postman is telling you that this is okay. It's built to understand what is coming in the backend. Put the status code there. It now give you that yes, what you have requested is if you remember, let me add something here and you will see something. I will send now. Do you see what is here?
Yes. Not found.
This is
404.
yes, not found. But you can see in our code here, we did not define anything like 404 here. So to tell you that this is built to use to run test our backend, and is built in a such a way that the normal standards, the normal approach is used. So without you even giving it something like what you need, it will tell you that yes, this is what it's supposed to be, even though you don't give me. This is how it's supposed to look like. Okay, look it now here. You see that I have HTML inside this place. It's not a JSON format again. And if I open it, you see what is selected here, right?
Yes.
Yes. So the best approach in a backend, you are receiving and sending data in JSON format. That is the best approach in backend using Node.js. The other programming language are Pythons, PHP, they have their own. Send data, but in Node.js using Express, we send and receive data in JSON format. So that is whereby I'm trying to let you know that the best approach is to use the JSON format. Since we are going to be using that best approach, let's start it from the beginning so that it will master us. That is the reason why I explain this now, so that you will understand it. Maybe I will forget later if I didn't explain now. So if I'm doing, you'll be confused. Where is the status code coming from? Where is this going and coming? How come do I get this? But as I explain now, if we proceed and I'm using it, you understand that this is how it works. And we have many of these status codes. We have 200. 200 is telling you that something is okay. 201 is telling you that you have created something successfully or saved something successfully in your database. We have 300, 301, which is telling you that something is moved or redirect successfully. If you visit some website and you want to make a payment, when you click on the payments, if you click on the payments tab, you will see that it will take you to another page. It will tell you that redirecting. So the page will now take you to another page where you will have access to make payments. So in that case, what is the status code you will use there is 300, 301. We have 400. 400 is bad request, which you saw in the postman there. 404 is also a bad request, but is not found. Is not found. So when you are using 400 as a bad request, you will now pass in a message. That is the reason why I tell you that in this particular place we pass users. In some cases, we'll be passing a JavaScript object here, which we have the key and the value that we send the response to the user. Sometimes the user now have let me say the user have account already and is trying to create account. You now send in a message 400. The user already exists. That user already exists. You are the one to pass that message here, and when you are passing it, you pass in as an object. You pass in as an object. So in that case, you use the status code of 400 in this place, 400, and then you pass in the message here. So that is how it is. As we move forward, you'll be understanding it. And again, the 404 is not found, which is something does not find. Assuming you now trying to get all users. Like here, we are getting a user. But in a situation whereby we have like 3 or 4 users and you are trying to get them, but last we start, we never even created any user, but we connected to the database and you are trying to fetch data from there to show you all users. It will not work. So in that case, you use 404 in this status code and pass in a JSON JavaScript object message that's user not found, because you don't have user in your database and you are trying to get it. The highest thing it will return an empty array for you. You see in here, in your Postman here, this is an array. From here, from this line 1 and line 8, this is an array. Then inside here, line 2 and line 7, you have objects inside, which is 2 objects here, the first name and the last name. So when you don't have this, it's going to return only this line 1 and line 8, which it will be like this. Let me type it in my... You will see something like this. This is what you are going to see. Something of this. Here, this is what you will be seeing. Empty array, because nothing is there. And if you pass in a message here that user not found or not found, that message will appear here. You remember we use the other endpoints, which is this. Let me copy it and then try it again. You will see our message there. Copy and paste here and run it again. You see what we have. So whatever message you pass in, that is what you are going to have. So when you pass in 404 as a status code, the next object message is product not found, user not found. So that is all what we are trying to say here. Are we good to go? We are good to go. Drop. Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay. So now, having known that as a backend developer, you will be sending and receiving data in JSON format, we receive data. We receive data like this. Request.body. That is 1. I can even put it on the next line. Then 2, we receive data in request.param. request.params. This is another way we receive data. The other way we receive data in request.query. These are the three ways in which we receive data. How are we going to use it? The way we are going to use it is inside here. Sometimes you have something like this. Cost, you pass in an object, like we have first name, command, last name, and then we set it should be equals to request dot body, like this. The same thing we do request dot params. So this is how we receive data. This part, we call it destructuring. But before we do this, we have something called model, which will be create later after we have created our database account and bring in our connection string, password, and everything. So by accepting this request.body, the input in the request.body, we have something we call middleware. There are so many of middleware. There are so many of them. One of them is used to allow us to get data from the body, which we call it body parser. It allows us to get data in the body. There is another one that takes care of authentication. There are another one that take care of how the user, the role of the user. So there are so many of them. As we are moving on, we'll be doing them one after the other. So now, this is the basic of how we do this. It may not make that much meaning, but in the next class, we will set up our database account. When we set it up, we will get our connection string. Then we will start putting all those things in practice. I will show you how we can use the middleware, which is the body parser, to accept something from the request body, as well as in the params, and so on and so forth. So at this point in time, I would like us to end this our today's class here. Then in our next class, we're going to set up our database account and then start building. Either we can create a product or we can start creating user and getting user. So that is what we'll be doing next, setting up our database. For today, this is where we will stop. Thank you for joining.
Okay, thank you. Please just remind me this status code for 300. That's the only one I didn't get.
Okay, 300 is when something is moved successful, like a resources is moved successful, or you are redirected to a page and is successful. That is where we use 300. So resources is 301.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Is there any other
No,
question?
no, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining and keep it up.
Thank
Anytime
you.
you have challenge, just drop in a message. I will take care of that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Welcome. So that is all for today. I will stop recording and then end the class here.